What's going on, sports world? It is another Friday night. So that means there's another Friday night episode of your boys, the Playcallers, the Playcallers Sports Show. Playcallers Sports Talk Show, excuse me. So a lot of different things to discuss tonight, right? We got some NFL rules that were in place. We've got this LeBron information. Carmelo Anthony has chosen to uh, retire, I guess. So what's being said, of course. DeAndre Hopkins has been released. He's already released the quarterbacks he'd like to play with, so we kind of have an idea of the teams that he wants to go to. We'll talk about that. And then we have this thing called the Eastern and Western Conference Finals that has happened or is happening. So a couple of things to dive into, for the evening. But of course, I'm joined this week by right beside me, Coach Dante. What's going on, Coach Dante?
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
And then, as always, below us, we have Stephen Box.
Was good to quote Jay-Z. Let's get into the proceedings this evening.
Not the proceedings this evening. But before we get to that, if you're new, if you just need a reminder, if you haven't been here before, maybe you didn't tune in the beginning, but you tuned in throughout the show. Just a quick reminder as to who we are. And when we say interactive sports talk, we really mean interactive sports talk. So as you come in, feel free to chime in on the topics, give your thoughts. Whether we agree or disagree, that's irrelevant because your thoughts are your thoughts. We're not here to change nobody's mind. We just here to tell you
Yep.
where we coming from. And maybe we're on the same page, maybe we're on opposite pages. But to get things started off, might as well go ahead and talk about the one person that everybody wants to talk about all the time, and that would be LeBron James. So earlier this week, LeBron James, after losing in the Western Conference Finals, which we will get to, LeBron said he was going to contemplate retirement. Also, as part of the LeBron James discussion, LeBron has also stated that he had a foot injury, that doctors told him to get season ending surgery. He did not, he continued to play. And um, individually had a pretty good series against Denver, right? So, Coach Dante, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to you, Steven. What are you guys' thoughts on the LeBron retirement speculation, as well as him playing through the injury and how that came out afterwards when they lost, and that whole situation?
I never thought he was gonna retire. I just think that's the moment. You know how you just lose when you lose a tough series when you were swept in. I just think he was taking that in a moment, a little bit of frustration, and get taking that as a moment to get things off his mind and stuff like that. So I never thought he would retire. He would retire. The foot injury he's supposed to have, not buying that, not making no excuses. The doctor told you get surgery. You still elected to play. So I'm not trying to hear all those excuses. The Denver was the better team. You clearly got swept. You can say, oh, now it's starting to be bringing up. Oh, he had a foot injury was the reason why LeBron James won 100%. You at the end of the day, you on the court. You were good enough to go. You look fine to me in game 4. You look fine. You look all right to me in game 4. I thought he did everything he could to keep the team in the game. Actually, Anthony Davis, certain games, I was really impressed with Nikola Jokic defense making Anthony Davis work. It wasn't easy. Yes, Anthony Davis is a great player. He's going to get some shots up on him. But I thought Nikola Jokic, the time he was on him, made Anthony Davis work, made him take some tough shots. And he made him take a lot of jump shots in this series. With the no show of Jared Vanderbilt, and when D'Angelo Russell, when he's not shooting the ball well, he's kind of unplayable. Plus, he don't give you that deep on the defensive side of the ball. Malik Beasley, played himself up out of the damn rotation. He stunk so bad in the playoffs. But other than that, not trying to hear the excuses that his foot was hurt. And he still was out there. He still was able to be effective. He still was able to drop 20 points, and he still was able to keep his team in that game 4. So other than that, this is his time he can use to go ahead and probably get that surgery at this moment. But other than that, I thought he's just in a moment, let me get things out of my mind right quick. We lost the Western Conference Finals, but I didn't never thought he was retiring. I never was by now. I just thought he was taking some time to get his head cleared up, and now he got all the time in the world to take care of his foot now.
Before you go, real quick, Steven just got a few comments. So Rod and Sister says Lakers 12 games. Um, hey Rod, I warned you. That's all I'm gonna say. Um, Will W. Voz Will says hello, gentlemen. What's going on, Will? And then he also says I think D'Lo is gone next year. That's a perfect uh, comment for the next gentleman who is a Lakers fan. Steven, your thoughts on my questions as well as Will says. And oh, one more thing here. We'll pull all this today. I think Reeves Davis and LBJ Walker for sure are back. So I'll let you answer that as well, sir.
Yeah, so first of all, let's just talk about the series itself, right? I mean, the Lakers.
Well, we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about the series later.
Okay. Well, I was just following coach's lead here, so uh, but when I look at LeBron, I agree with what Coach said. Right? We we both agree here that he was never going to retire. Right? It wasn't happening. The reality is you have to think about the fact LeBron went out there and played almost the entire game in game four. Now, I do believe that maybe his foot was injured or whatever, because I had been saying for weeks that it seemed like something wasn't quite right. It was obvious that he wasn't 100%. But at the same time, the dude is like 38 years old and he's in year 20. He's never going to be 100% in the playoffs ever again for the rest of his life. So that's not really a surprise to me. So I think that the fact that he went out there despite the injuries, playing through it, and maybe in that moment kind of felt like some of his teammates didn't bring the same effort that he brought to the game, and to lose a close game like that. And then I think, the extra frustration of knowing you had the ball in your hand at the end of the game and you didn't get the job done, right? I think when you look at all those things getting swept, it's like Coach said, you're sitting in that press conference and you are wrapped up in the moment. And somebody asks you that question, because of course they're going to ask you that question. This dude has been talking about playing with his son for like 5 years now. He's not going to give up on that when he's this close. So, no, I never believed that he was going to retire. I thought that was ridiculous the entire time. I will say this, in terms of who's going to come back and who's not going to come back. The only way that D'Lo is coming back is if he is willing to take less money to do so. From everything I've heard, he actually was a guy that the locker room really liked. They felt like he was a good locker room guy, so I don't think they're opposed to bringing him back. But he played himself out of a max contract for sure. So the only way he's going to be able to come back to the Lakers is if he's willing to take less money. Obviously, Austin Reeves played himself into a much bigger contract, so that has to be the priority, and then Rui has to be the other priority. So to me, if it comes down to if you can only pay two of those guys, D'Lo would be the man out.
Makes sense. So we got a couple more comments here. Rod as Austin Reeves and Rui. Um, Will says, yeah, I did forget Rui. Will also says, also LBJ was caught up in the moment. He's not retiring, just had a lot on his mind. I think we all agree on that. LeBron James needs to go to USC. Will Vox says it was 30 minutes after game, caught up in a moment for sure. And then Billy V says, what up, though, fellas? What's going on, Billy V? Appreciate you hopping in with us as well. And then Rod and Sister also says Tristan Thompson as a locker room guy. I mean, you can get a locker room guys for like nothing. So,
Yeah.
Um,
We'll talk a little bit when we talk about the series itself. But yeah, I got some
yes,
comments about Tristan Thompson's effort versus some other people's.
sir. Fair enough. So I'll be real quick, man. LeBron's not going to retire. Um, I just, it seems like it's funny to me. Like every time he comes up short, it just leaks after the series that he was injured in some way. You know, I'm just gonna leave it there. That's all I need to say about that. As far as the players, I think you named Stephen the perfect players that you guys have to keep if you want to be successful. You want Rui. You want Austin Reeves. Obviously LeBron, and then obviously AD. Um, depending on what you can get for him if you were making a switch at all. And then we have our resident snowman himself, Snowman Multimedia. Hey, hey, checking in from Indianapolis. What's going on, Snowman? Appreciate you hopping in as well. And we'll definitely keep things moving. So since we talked about LeBron, let's just go ahead and roll into the series, and we'll go counterclockwise this time. So, Stephen, we will start with you. Your thoughts on your LA Lakers and the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, so this is a series that people are going to look back at 5, 10 years down the road, and all they're going to see is the Lakers got swept. And that's unfortunate because this actually was a pretty competitive series. The Lakers were in pretty much all of these games, kind of fell apart a little bit at the end of game three, but for the most part, they were in all of these games. They had their chances, but credit to Denver because at the end of the day, when the Lakers had chances to pull away or put games away, they couldn't hit shots. And I'm not just talking about jump shots. I'm talking about missing point blank layups, right? Just couldn't make shots that they should be able to make in their sleep. Meanwhile, you got Denver over there hitting step back threes with like people like 6 inches away from their mouth. It was absolutely ridiculous. Some of the shots, especially the Jamal Murray and Joker hit. And I just give Denver credit. I'm not going to take anything away from what they did. I thought that the Lakers played well enough to win games in this series, but when it counted, they couldn't get it done. They didn't make the shots, and Denver did, and that's why Denver won the series. When I go a little bit deeper into the series, so when I really started kind of looking at individual play, so the first thing is AD showed up game one, and then he went milk carton. He's not street,
Disappearing act.
he's not street clothes Davis anymore. He's milk carton Davis because he was missing for the rest of the series. He was a little bit there on defense a couple of games, but offensively, the dude just disappeared. The problem that the Lakers had going into this and still have, and it was the problem that D'Lo was supposed to solve. It was the problem that Beasley was supposed to help solve. Was no one could consistently put up points besides LeBron, and that's problematic. And that's something the Lakers have got to get figured out. So it'll be interesting to see what goes forward. I'm of course seeing already all kind of rumors about what's going to happen in the future. I'm not even going to address any of those right now. We'll deal with those on a future episode. But the one thing I do want to say is I'm glad I haven't seen too much of this yet. Uh, People blaming our coach, right? Because Darvin Ham, a first year coach, he got out coached. I thought he made some good adjustments in all the series. But let's be honest, the Lakers were just a better team than the Warriors because Steve Kerr actually did outcoach him on a lot of games. And Malone definitely outcoached him in the Western Conference Finals. But I think that was a learning experience for him, right? And I don't think that makes him a bad coach. This is what happens when you have a guy with his first head coaching job in his first year, and to manage the way he did to get this team back on track, to bring all those guys together at the trade deadline and actually make a run and get to the Western Conference Finals. I feel like Darvin Ham did a great job this year. And I don't think that anybody should be talking about he needs to be gone or that he was a problem.
Fair enough. So a couple other comments real quick, and then we'll get on to Coach Dante. So Billy V says LBJ might be better off going home to Cleveland. Never know. Ryder Center says AZ plays like, I'm going to say, a timid cat. I think I know what you're saying, but we're going to go with timid cat for show purposes. Um, Snowman says LBJ and his brown sexuals are full of it. Snowman's definitely not a fan of LeBron James. If you didn't know, now you know.
Yeah.
And then Ryder Censored says Embiid and AD needs to go to the Grand Wizard to buy a heart. Hey, I'm going to say, Rod, that is 100% facts.
They,
You
they, they
know,
need, now they need to go buy some courage to
they
take
need to
that.
buy they need to buy heart and courage then, because neither one of them have any type of heart. Because the reason I agree with what he said there, and I know we got to get to Coach Dante in a second. The reason I agree with what they said, what Rod said, is these are two cats that are supposed to be two of the best players in the league. They never show up for the teams when they need it. And then, while we're on the subject, no, we'll wait. Coach Dante, what are your thoughts?
Well, at least I can say during that bubble year, no matter how we think of Anthony Davis, at least he got something with Joel Embiid don't got. That's a championship in the goddamn second round, out of the second round appearance. That's something he has over
Facts.
Joel Embiid. So I ain't trying to hear no damn excuse about no damn Joel Embiid anymore. So other than that, we talking about a dude that did win a championship, that did get out of the second round, that did get to the Western Conference Finals, and that did get to the final. So other than that, I think I got, like I said, man, I'm gonna give credit to Nikola Jokic. You know how well he defended Anthony Davis, made him take some jump shots. The times that he did go to the rim, Nikola Jokic, I thought he holded his own pretty well. But you got to give credit to Denver, man. When they needed to get a stop, they made a stop, man. When they needed to get it, and they also hit some tough shots. It was some possessions. The Lakers played some great defense. I mean, the one-legged shot that Jokic hit, that's bad, not bad. That's hella defense, just a great shot. I mean, Jamal Murray, you go back to the game too, when he was hitting fadeaway jump shots and three-point shots. That's actually good defense, but a great shot, but great shots. And the last thing the Lakers, I know they expected was bubble Jamal Murray coming back, but Aaron Gordon made some key plays, key shots at the three-point line, and also Caldwell Pope was a big help for this series too. And Bruce Brown, one of my favorite players in the NBA, man. Man, that man set the tone from the start of the game to the ending of the game. Coming off the bench, he gives you instant offense and some great defense off of the bench. You just got to give credit to that whole Denver team, man. Denver Nuggets was just better for us, coaching wise, organization wise, rotational wise, probably player wise. They were better on the court as a unit. And I'm not faltering Darvin Ham for this. I mean, like I said, again, you were the 13th seed
Yeah.
before you made those trades. You turned into the best defense after those trades, and then you got to the Western Conference Finals with a first-year head coach. So, I mean, Darvin Ham, yes, he did get out coached by Mike Malone, but again, man, like I say, he made it to the Western Conference Finals, his first full season with this team. And you heard no locker room. You heard outside of Russell Westbrook, I haven't heard no locker room disputes about LeBron James, and it's hard to kind of control that guy when he's in a locker room for himself. So again, and Darvin Ham not afraid to hold people accountable, not afraid to put people on the bench when they're not playing well. Malik Beasley was in a rotation after the All-Star break. Now all of a sudden he's up out of the rotation because he's playing like crap in the playoffs. In the Memphis series, when he did get a shot. So other than that, man, I gotta give credit to the coach Darvin Ham. But Denver was just a better overall team, and they made shots, man. They made some hell of a shots, and just got to give a credit to the Denver Nuggets. They just made shots, and that whole everybody that got on the floor contribute, whether it's defensively and offensively.
All right. And JJ, quickly, what are your thoughts? You probably picked up by now, but we're just discussing the Western Conference Finals. So, what are your thoughts on the series?
In totality, I think people overstated how good the Lakers are and understated how good Denver Nuggets are, because Denver is the better team. In a nutshell, you have really two superstar players on the Lakers, but after that, the drop off between who has other Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. are better than Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura, and then you have Bruce Brown coming off the bench. And I think we said it on the show before the series began. It's not going to be easy to have Anthony Davis impact both sides, especially knowing that he's going against Nikola Jokic. And that shot that he made, I've seen Nikola Jokic make crazy shots like that throughout his career. So, that's something that his form, because he arches it, it gives him the best chance for it to go down, because he arches it so high. So what must come up must come down. I think the Lakers are good, but I do agree with Coach as about the point about Darvin Ham. The problem is Laker Town does not settle for anything other than titles. Laker Town does not settle for getting to conference finals and not cashing in, and let alone getting swept. Do I think he should be a scapegoat? Absolutely not. But I don't want them to make a knee-jerk reaction like we've seen with the Milwaukee Bucks or the Phoenix Suns, or like give him a chance to get a team around him that can build around what he wants his team to see if they can get there. And I think with LeBron, I think you need to start being the Robin of the role and not trying to have to be so aggressive and take over like D Wade did for you when you came over to him. I think if you let Anthony Davis and your other guys get off, you will find it much easier for you to continue doing what you do, because you're going to still impact the game in many different ways. But he ran out of gas. 3 quarters, he was great. That last quarter, he tired because he's 38 years old. And so I just think, the Nuggets, to me, they have the better coach. They had the better team. They had a purpose. And because they don't have enough, it proved, most fortuitous for Denver. I did think they would at least get a game, but I think after game 3, which was their best chance to win, and they didn't get it, I knew that game 4 was going to be a struggle. All Denver did was just wait till LeBron got tired. Once they wait till he got tired, they just said, you know what, finally, now we're going to ball, because Aaron Gordon started going off even harder. Michael Porter Jr. was out banging the boards on him. Shout out to Denver. Denver looks good. LA is going to be fine, but we're not seeing Kobe walk through the door. We're not seeing Shaq walk through the door. We're seeing an older LeBron and an older with wear and tear AD. You got to build and bring people around them.
Yeah, Billy V states AD only got that ring because he was playing with LBJ. I mean, hey, he did play with LBJ. That's the only time he got a ring. So those are factual statements.
But can I respond to that real fast?
Even though it's 2 years ago, that's 2 years of wear and tear from LeBron back then to now.
Yeah, but I'm going to respond to this real quick. There's 2 reasons why AD has a ring, and LeBron has a ring for the same reason AD does, because they played together. LeBron's not winning that ring on his own, and the fact and Cool will tell you, I said this leading up to that championship. You gave the Lakers like a 3-month break to recuperate their bodies. There was nobody was beating the Lakers that year.
Yeah, so I'll go about the series real quick. I'm excited that Denver got the win, whether it was 4 games, 6 games, 7 games. The fact that we won, it's makes me happy. First time ever, Western Conference Final champions, right? So first time ever we've even won the West. So now we're going to first time ever the NBA Finals. So a lot of people, Nuggets fans included, are celebrating and happy because we got to this point. Listen to the team and take the same mentality that you take with every other sport. You know what that mentality is? It's great to win the Western Conference. That's not the biggest goal. If you don't start your season from game 1 wanting to win the championship, then you are in the wrong sport. Don't play sports. Go commentate. Don't coach, because I don't want you coaching players with that same mentality, but go commentate or go train players or something. If you don't have that drive to try to be a champion, then you don't need to be in any sport, period. So every team should be looking to be where Denver is now. Denver's been wanting to be there 47 years. They haven't gotten there. Finally got there. But it's great. But again, as everyone's already said, the Lakers greatly outperform expectations. So shout out to them as well. You're going to get out coached when you're a first year coach and you're playing a guy that's a veteran that's been around. Those things happen. Mike Malone got out coached last time around. That's why the Lakers beat us in the bubble. He learned, he's evolved. He learned how to use all of his pieces due to losing his second and third best player for multiple years. He got it tweaked right, got the right people in. And now we're looking at one of the better depth teams in the league, one of the better athletic teams in the league, one of the teams that has a lot of interchangeable pieces and can play a lot of different ways. So that's why, the Denver Nuggets are there. LA has LeBron. LA has Anthony Davis. Other guys are going to want to come there and play. They're going to have some money probably finally this year because some of those guys are probably going to let walk. So we'll see how the Lakers retool and how they get ready, moving forward. But definitely a shout out to them as well, because I don't think people give them enough credit. We talk about LeBron, we talk about the Lakers, but I don't think you give them credit from saying, look where they started and look where they ended. Now, we'll say this. Please continue to talk about everybody but the Nuggets, because that's extra fuel for the fire for my team. And I love it. You ain't got to give us the respect. We'll go take it when we win a championship. That's all I got to say about that. So now the other side, we have the Eastern Conference. We had Miami go up 3-0 as well, just like the Denver Nuggets. Difference is they did not close the deal. Boston came out in games 4 and 5 and said, Bishop Bullwinkle style to the no, no, no. We're not going out like that. They have the weapons to be able to do that. The young weapons to be able to do that. So they've been able to, get 2 wins. So now we got 3-2 series. It's actually a series, right? So we'll start with you, Coach Dante. We'll quickly go around. Who do you think is going to win this series and why?
Well, I'm still gonna stick to my original point, my original pick. I'm still gonna stick to Boston in 7. That's when I had coming in. I don't like backing away from my actual pick, so I always stick to my original pick. So other than that, I think it's possible they can push it to 7, but man, it's a lot of pressure on the Miami Heat, man, to get that game six in Miami. Because if that don't happen, if that don't happen, Boston got an opportunity to be probably the first team to come back from 3-0 to win the series pretty much. Boston been fighting on the offensive glass for the past 2 games. That was a problem going into game number 3, going into game number 4. That was a problem. They weren't competing on the offensive glass on the defensive rebounding. Their defense, Miami Heat was also hitting shots from downtown. They were also hitting shots. Matt Screws were able to hit shots. Kyle Lowry was able to hit some big time jump shots. And the Boston Celtics, man, they looked at lifeless out there. They were getting outplayed. They were getting out physical. Now you turned around the last 2 games. Boston doing the same thing to them. 97 points last night. That was speaking on how great their defense was. In the last 2 games, Boston shot red hot from the 3-point line. You go back, you look at the game 4, 18 threes. This last night, 16 threes. When you're hot like that, it's nothing a team can do when you're shooting the lights out like that. So other than that, man, and they also had 23 assists. They were able to move the ball around a lot, move that Miami Heat defense, and they was also forcing some turnovers. Miami Heat had 16 turnovers as well. So, and also Jason Tatum came alive. Jason Tatum did not have a fourth quarter basket into game 4, and he finally woke up and put this team on his back. So when Jason Tatum is playing great basketball for Boston, then everything else for Boston offensively and defensively will come through. So got to give credit to Jason Tatum, especially for Boston not quitting and going out there and fighting and living to see another day in Miami.
Fair enough. And Stephen, what about you? What are your thoughts?
So when I look at the contrast in these series, right? So what I see is in game 3, you saw a Boston team that looked like they quit. They did. They looked like they quit.
They quit in game 3. They did.
And to me, if you're Miami, you had to know Boston was going to come out desperate in game 4. But here's what I would tell you about desperate teams, because we've seen it a whole bunch of times. If you can withstand that initial wave and then you build a lead up on them, they will 99% of the time hold. And that's all Miami had to do is go out there and match their energy, keep the game close, and then pull away, and Boston would have folded. But Miami did not match their energy. Miami, I think, convinced themselves because of the way Boston gave up in game 3 that Boston was done. They thought that Boston was going to come out and roll over for them. And the reality is Boston had to sit there for 2 days and listen to everybody tell them about how they quit and about how they're quitters. And it motivated them. Now you go back home. You already lost the first 2 games at home. Boston is not a team that is going to sit there and say, oh, it's okay if we lose all 3 games at home. There was no way Boston was going to allow themselves to lose game 5. It was never going to happen. They were coming out there super fired up. And truthfully, Miami, they were playing kind of like they still were had some house money to play with, right? But game 6, Miami's awake now. Miami's gonna say, oh, you know what? We can't do this, because if we mess around and lose this game 6, If we go to game 7, we're losing. Because if you mess around and you let Boston get back home for game 7, you will lose the series. That's
The
not going to happen.
referees will make sure of that.
But that's not going to happen. The Miami Heat are going to come back to life, and they're finishing this series tomorrow night in Miami.
JJ, what you got?
Interesting enough, I agree with pretty much everything Steven said, but I want to amend one thing that I do think with. I think Miami can beat it in 7. I just think Miami rather not have to deal with going back there to win in 7. Because I think, and I'll be honest with you on this one, yesterday's game was one of those, we'll let you have it, we'll finish it back home. We'll wait till Gabe gets another day to heal, and then he'll come back. I had the same injury Gabe had, so I knew the type of, recovery process he was going to have. You're good for that one game, but them next days after, you can't touch it, you can't do it. But they gave him, it's like when they said he was going to rest out, that was them, in my opinion, saying, if we lose, we want you back for this game at home so we can close it out in front of our home crowd. And I think, it's about time Boston finally came to play for this series. I mean, we're talking about the team that had the second best record in the NBA over Denver Nuggets in the West. You're going to tell me you're going to go out 4 games to 0 or 4 games to 1? No. So it's about time you put that type of game, because that game last night was supposed to be game 1. And if you notice from game 1 and game 2, they had been up by like 10 and 12 points, but they relaxed. Last night, they didn't relax. They kept going because they was like, you know what? No more. And you watch Jimmy and them, Jimmy's kind of like probing around like, okay, I'm not going to overexert myself too much if that's, but I expect Jimmy in game 6 so from start to finish, I expect those boys to be like, you know what? We wanted to close this at home in front of our home crowd. We're going to come in and we're going to do this, because I still think, even though Boston ended up blowing them out, there were still stretches in that game that Miami was clawing back slowly but surely. And if they had a Gabe Vincent playing for them, who could have been another ball handler, because let's be honest, Kyle Lowry played like crap yesterday. Like, he played like total crap. The turnovers, he's second guessing himself on easy like elbow shots. Like, he's not playing that way. Gabe Vincent is a better ball handler than he is right now. And so I think with him coming back, I got Miami closing this out. But I'm glad that Boston finally came to play, because it would look really bad if you had 57 wins or 55 wins and you get swept in the conference finals. I think it's that you had to win 2. And I remember this kind of reminds me of, I want to say it's either 2010 or 2011 in the semifinals, where Boston was up 3 games to 0 on Dwight Howard's Orlando Magic. They got 2 games to cut it to 3 games to 2, and then Boston closed it at home. I think the same thing is going to happen with Miami. Hey, Mr. Jose.
All right. So real quick, I'm just going to put up Rob's comment here. He says AD doesn't have that dog in him to be a number 1 scoring option.
No
I
lie.
agree. There's a reason why I slid that in right there.
Yeah, no
Jimmy
lies.
Buckets does have that in there to be the number 1 option. The reason the Miami Heat lost, especially last night, was Jimmy Buckets can't put up 50, 45, 50 points for 5, 6 games straight in the Eastern Conference Finals, right? There's a point where he has to have a game where he's just not shooting as well. That happened to be last night. The game before that, he did put up some points, but not as much as he normally does. And what happens is you get fatigued, you get wore down a little bit when you're asked to be the best defender and the best offensive player on the team consistently for the team to win. So there was no expectation in my mind that Miami would sweep. I feel like Boston will still win in 7. It'd be the first team to ever come back from down 3-0. But I wouldn't be surprised if Miami wins. But I do agree with Steve, if they are going to win, it's going to need to be in 6. If it goes to 7 back in Boston, that's where you're going to see Boston, I think, have a lot of home court advantage, a lot of calls going their way, a lot of things that happen for teams when they're at home. Now, as a Denver fan, of course, I want Miami to win because I want to have 4 games in Denver. So, as a fan, I want Miami to win. As a basketball person, I think that Boston has the best opportunity to be the first team to come back from down 3-0 and win the series. But I'm gonna stick with that, but I wouldn't be surprised if Miami comes out and wins this game tomorrow night and closes the series out.
And I want to say one more thing about this. Remember last year? You remember last year? Jimmy Butler got tired in that game. Was tired as hell in that game 7. Was the reason why he actually pulled up and shot that three ball. Shot that three ball because he didn't want to even go into another. He didn't want to. He didn't want to. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to go into another overtime. He didn't want to even go into another overtime. He was going for the. He was going for the kill. He was going for the kill, or we either lose it right here because. Think about all the energy that he put into that game 6 before that game 7, and to get them back in Miami. And plus, Tyler Hero again, which he was hurt, kind of playing a little bit, probably say more of a difference in this series now. When you look at it, when he's averaging 20 points per game. But if this goes to a game 7, this is probably the time you look at Jimmy Butler and you like, this man may be coming out of gas because, like Cool McCain said. He's got to be the best defender. He's got to defend the best player. He's got to put a lot of energy on the offensive side because you don't know who's going to step up. You don't know if Bam going to step up or not. You don't know if Kyle Lowry. You don't know how healthy Gabe Vincent will be coming into that game 7. So it's a lot of pressure on Miami. You do not want this game going to Boston in the home court where you know they're going to have a lot of energy, when you know they may have the referees, and when you may tire out Jimmy Butler and wear down Jimmy Butler.
Definitely. So we've had some rule changes. We're gonna hop on and kind of go over. We're just gonna put them all together here, right? So in the NBA, the talk has resurfaced about the possibility of putting in a flop technical. So if you flop, it could be a technical foul. In the NFL, couple of rule changes, but the most interesting one I really want to focus on is the kickoff. So they've changed the kickoff from now to a fair catch from anywhere gets you to the 25. So wanted to get you guys' thoughts on those 2 rule changes. There, of course, will be others, and there were a couple of other things that were altered, but those are the 2 that kind of stick out. So, JJ,
you're saying if they fair catch like at the 5-yard line, they automatically to the 25.
Anywhere they fair catch at the 7, it goes automatically to the 25. If they fair catch at the 15, it goes automatically to the 25. So yeah, that's going to be in place starting next year. So JJ, we'll start with you and get your thoughts on those 2 rule changes, one in the NBA, one in the NFL.
I actually, come to think of it, at first I was kind of like shaking my head at that, but then I'm thinking, if you squib kick it and it gets to the 40, and you kick it high and it gets to like the 40, you fair catch it, you go back to the 25. So it's like,
No,
in a
you
way,
you wouldn't.
you wouldn't go back.
No,
Well,
you wouldn't go back.
I thought that's so. When you said anywhere on the field, I'm assuming that you were saying
anywhere that's not 25. So you wouldn't take somebody from the 40 back to the 25.
Well, in that case, I go back to shaking my head, like, what the heck, like, bro, like, that's ridiculous. They don't move punts up to the 20 or so after they fair catch all the time, or vice versa. But it's just like, I feel like every time we go to these committee meetings or the upcoming rule changes, it's always stuff, quote unquote, to shoot for like pizzazz or something, as opposed to working on the actual stuff that needs to be changed, which is go through all the calls that were missed on certain plays and see what is considered being called all the time and the result of that, like make those changes. But the NBA one, I am if it's a step in the right direction. If you want to clean up the game, you need to potentially get these guys in situations where if they continue to use this tactic, it could cost them, because if they get flopping techs, I would assume those techs are going to add towards your total to possibly be suspended. So if you get 16 techs and 15 of them are flopping, you're more than likely going to slow down on the flopping and stuff if you see that you're adding up on your technical fouls. And it's just, but what I am concerned about is what I want to know. I'm pretty sure there's going to be more language about it, is where do they decide is something considered a flop or considered of physics? If an unstoppable force meets an immovable object and it pushes it, your body's going to tilt back like that. And I've watched a lot of the calls that get played where people say it's a flop, It's really when somebody hits you and their head goes back like in a diagonal demotion. It's almost like you're being winded or so. But then the game against the against the Nuggets and Lakers, LeBron got hit in his head. He whipped back and said it was something going on. It was like a huge issue. Clearly, it was a flop, and it became a foul. Anthony Davis got hit in the same way, but he was so focused on the rebound, he ain't paying no attention to it. And then there you go, no foul call. So it's like that type of stuff is where they'll be like no flopping, and it would help out. I think the NBA one is great for the game. NFL, like seriously, I mean, I really don't understand that fair catch rule at all.
Steven, your thoughts?
So let's talk about the NBA first. So first of all, this is 100% a PR stunt by the NBA. You're not going to enforce this. At best, you're going to maybe call it for a little bit at the beginning of the season, and by the time the playoffs come, it will be gone. Just like how they said that they were going to start calling players for initiating contact on offense and not letting them get an offensive or getting a defensive foul on that. They've gone right back to allowing guys to jump into defenders and pick up fouls. Nothing changed. Nothing's going to change with this. How do you even decide? Like JJ, alluded to, how do you even decide what actually constitutes a flop? Because you're going to decide it as a flop. Now you're going to have coaches trying to challenge it, trying to say it wasn't a flop. You're going to have to try to come up with some dynamic of, all these little rules about if the person does this, that, the other is considered a flop. It's too much. How about this? How about instead of worrying about the flopping, how about you start doing this? Stop giving fouls for nonsense. Actually start calling fouls when people actually really get fouled. And how about you don't allow things like what happened at the end of game 4 in the Lakers and Nuggets game, where Jamal Murray clearly touched the ball last, and you come out a week after the game, I'm like, oh yeah, he did touch it. That's like, to me, like that's the stuff the NBA should be looking to clean up. How do we not miss those kind of calls in a Western Conference final series? So to me, that is where they need to be focused their attention. The flopping thing, it's going to be pointless. Don't even bother. The NFL, everybody's making a big deal out of this kickoff rule, and everyone thinks it's a terrible idea. And I'm just laughing because I'm like, they've had this in college for 5-6 years now, and it has not negatively affected the college football game, not one single bit.
Coach Dante, what are your thoughts?
Like I said, man, I don't know if the flopping theme may work. I think you're still gonna see people still trying to flop. But again, I understand what the NBA trying to do. They're trying to clean up everything, clean up the game. So I technically understand that. And again, the NFL rule, I don't know what it is about that NFL rule. So, not too much to say on the NFL rule.
Fair enough. I'll be real brief. The NFL rule is stupid. I mean, what it does is it incentivizes not bringing a kickback, which has been one of the most exciting parts of a lot of games, a lot of playoff series, different things. Kansas City Chiefs fans, think if this rule was in effect, and instead of you getting that kickoff from us and running it back and getting to do like 5 blocks in the back and it not be called, you actually just took it to 25 and had to march all the way down the field. Could be looking at a completely different game, right? You didn't have to worry about that because this kind of rule wasn't in place. Also, you think about a lot of guys who made a big part of their career off returning kicks and returning punts. You're basically now putting them in a situation where they may be told, hey, since we're going to get a 25 anyway, if it's inside the 10 or if it's inside the 15, don't even bring it out, right? So you never know how that's going to change some of those dynamics. I do understand my colleagues talking about how this has been in college for many years. The NFL is not college, so I think sometimes we err on the side of, oh, let's make it safer for the players, air quote safer. But are we really making it safer for the players? There's still going to be the big hits. The guy who's actually catching the ball may be in a little bit of a better situation because he may not be getting hit, but all those other hits are going to happen before the ball gets to him. There's still going to be big collisions. There's still going to be the plays. Guys are still going to get hurt. You're not solving that by making this change. So what was really the purpose of this particular change? But whatever, it's the NFL. You're just adding 5 yards to what you're already getting if you do the kickback. So whatever. For the NBA, it's how you police the rule. If it does go into effect, it's how you police it. It's what are you going to determine as a baseline for what's considered a flop versus what's not
Yeah.
considered a flop.
Yeah.
Until we know that, the only thing I can say about the rule is I do like the spirit of it, but it has to be consistent. It has to go throughout the season, and there has to be a baseline, and it has to be an evolving baseline because once you start the rule, there's going to be one thing that you're going to be looking at, and people are going to say, "Okay, it's flopping." But as these guys understand what you're looking for at flopping, especially guys like LeBron and that guy that was in Houston and Oklahoma City and Brooklyn and now is in Philadelphia and maybe leaving there to go back to Houston or somewhere else is a king flopper. So those guys are going to learn how to adapt to the new rule. So how is the rule going to adapt to those adaptations that players are going to make? They're still going to figure out ways to try to flop. So that's my only concern with that rule. But we'll see how those things do play out. You guys did all bring up some great points about that because it all depends on the different ways that they're going to look at it, and that's what I'm concerned about.
So let me ask you a question, Cool. Do you think it's going to be similar to the issues with the transition take foul? Because some calls are transition take, some calls are not. They just
Of
don't
course,
really.
of course, because whatever they put as the flat line is still going to be up to the referee's discretion. That's the problem, unless they're going to actually take the time to say, okay, it's a flop. Let's go look at the monitor. Let's call New York and see if we agree that this is a flop or not. If you're going to do that in a quick manner, not have to look at it from 70 different angles, but say, hey, we need these 2, 3 angles right here. Does this look like a flop or not? Is this what we consider a flop? And kind of co-assess those, or maybe say, hey, we call it a flop, but it's actually not a flop. If you're not going to do something like that, you're going to fall into this situation. There's no way around it. So, for our last piece of business here tonight, we've got a Pro Bowl wide receiver, get a little long in the tooth, but still a Pro Bowl wide receiver, who has been released. And for those of you who may not be aware, the Cardinals have did DeAndre Hopkins a huge favor. They're going to pay him a lot of money to no longer be a Arizona Cardinal. So he can go to any team he wants, play for whoever he wants. He did say himself teams that he would like to go to for his next organization. The teams that he listed, these are the quarterbacks, because he actually said these are the quarterbacks that he would like to play on, which gives us teams because we know what teams these quarterbacks are the quarterbacks for. So Patrick Mahomes, which means he would mind playing for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's it's a no-brainer. Lamar Jackson, which means he wouldn't mind playing for the Baltimore Ravens. We thought it might be somebody else, but it is the Baltimore Ravens. Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills, of course. Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia Eagles, and Justin Herbert, the Chargers. So these are the places that DeAndre Hopkins has stated he would like to go play. So I'll just ask each one of you guys, of the 5 places that he's picked, which do you think would be the best fit for him? And if you want to pick like a number 2, we don't have to go to detail on number 2, but just maybe like a quick, like, if he doesn't go here, he might go here. What are you guys' thoughts? And Steven, man, we'll start with you on this one again.
I mean, I think it kind of depends on what is like how we going to define best, right? Is his goal to try to go and reclaim his position as a true number 1 wide receiver? Is it to put up monster stats, or is it simply to go get a ring? That to me is going to be the big question mark, right? If his goal is to win a ring and be able to go somewhere where he can put up some good stats, Kansas City is going to be his best slot, right? Because you already have some other weapons there, but you can still go there and really be potentially the top option, or maybe like worst case, a second tier option. You got a really good quarterback. A lot of the other teams that you mentioned are going to be teams where you're not necessarily going to get a lot of catches. Like Philadelphia is an example. You are walking in. I don't care even if you are still pretty good at this point. you're not walking into Philadelphia right now as anything more than the number 3 receiver. So you have to decide, is that something you're okay with, or do you need to be that limelight guy? Right? You might be able to go to Baltimore and get it. And no disrespect to JJ's team here, but I don't see Baltimore as a credible threat to win a Super Bowl this year. So, and the Chargers are in the same boat, right? So when I start looking at some of these other teams, it's like you're not necessarily winning championships there. And if your goal is to put up stats, then you're not going to necessarily be able to do it in certain places. So to me, kind of the best balance of it, where you can go put up some decent stats and potentially win a championship, Kansas City makes the most sense.
Coach, you got.
I'm actually like I said, I think Buffalo will be a solid spot for him, but I'm gonna go toss the Chargers. I'm gonna say the Chargers will be a good spot because I know you got Mike Williams over there. Keenan Allen is always hurt. He's never always on the field. He's starting to break down. I think with him, Justin Herbert over there. I don't know about the Austin Eckler situation is kind of iffy on that side, but he can go there, you know, and be give it will give Justin Herbert another weapon, and that offense will be as very good and dynamic with Justin Herbert, Mike Williams, who's a jump ball receiver who can catch anything out of the air, and you will have Jalen Guyton, who's pretty good. Palmer's pretty good. Gerald Everett is a solid tight end as well. And Hopkins and DeAndre Hopkins can go right in there, and I think he can kind of fit in as I think he can fit in. Keenan Allen is never on the field. He's always hurt. He's productive. When he's on the field, he can still be Keenan Allen. But the problem is it's a question. He's not on the field all the time. So other than that, I will put the Chargers as a option. But a dark horse, I think Baltimore definitely need another weapon. I think they definitely need another weapon. Bateman he's got a ton of potential and he's hurt. I don't know if Say Flowers is a good one of the he was one of my favorite receivers coming up out of the draft, but I still think they're gonna be missing the number one. And I think DeAndre Hopkins can go in right away and give Lamar Jackson that number one receiver he's been looking for. And you don't know how Odell Beckham is after the ACL injury. That's gonna free up a lot though. That's gonna take a lot of wear and tear off Odell Beckham if DeAndre Hopkins can go in there, gets there and give Lamar Jackson an extra weapon. That also takes pressure off Mark Andrews, who's basically the receiver last year, the tight end and the receiver last year. So I think he can be a formidable weapon for Baltimore.
All right, JJ, what you got?
So aside from the de facto Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going to disagree with Steven. I think we are a credible threat. And I think if he comes to Baltimore, it would be a great fit because unlike Arizona, we run the football. And when you run the football, that makes it easier for the wide receivers on the outside, especially when you have a quarterback who is similar to Kyler Murray, but a little bit more agile and more ability to scramble and move on the move. I definitely do not think have him coming here is going to be a stunt. And I think if he comes to Baltimore, they have a good chance of exceeding expectations because you can say what you want. The Ravens, every time they've made the playoffs, they've been maybe one or two plays away from pretty much advancing to the next game. So it's not as if they get in and then they falter and then they fumble. Other than that one, I think is either us or Philadelphia because of how our teams are set up. Now, I think Philadelphia is in a better position because they already have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. But, that's still a good fit for them, too, because DeAndre is at the point of his career where he still has it, but he's not going to have it for like 4 or 5 years. So if you're trying to win now, you're trying to get to a place that gives you a chance to win for at least another 1 or 2 years or 2 or 3 years, it's got to be Kansas City, Philadelphia, or Baltimore. I don't really trust Buffalo because I think it's the same situation in Arizona all over again. Air raid offense, high profile, but that's it. But I think, Baltimore, because I think Baltimore, and I don't even necessarily I'm not somebody that's like saying this for my own personal thing that, I want him in this and this because I kind of ride with the team I have. But I think that connection between him and Lamar, with Lamar's ability to move around the pocket, and as well with a new offense. You know, a lot of people predicate and judge the Ravens' offense or wide receivers, but it's Greg Roman. And Steven knows from having Greg Roman, his passing scheme is just a fly, a drag, or a 10-yard out. That's it. There's no other routes that are really ran in his offense. So now you get a different offense that does like trips formation, operate under center, single back. You know, you do all different types of route trees, the stop and go, the hitch, anything. It changes things for these guys. And so I think with having a new offensive coordinator, having Lamar, having J.K. Dobbins, having this Baltimore, you know, culture, I think Baltimore would be a good fit for him.
So I'm gonna go first. Buffalo. Buffalo is in need of a 1A number two receiver. He slots right in there. That's a great fit. They should be better in the run game this year, but he's a missing piece for a team like that. You look at some of these other teams we talk about. Philadelphia. Could he go to Philadelphia? Absolutely. But they gave him a good chance to possibly win a championship this year. Absolutely. You bring in DeAndre Hopkins with the weapons that Philadelphia already has. You've got three solid number one receivers, or at least in their prime number one receivers, guys that are going to make most of the catches. You don't have anyone that you can double team. Everybody gets one on one. You make things in life a lot easier for Jalen Hurts. But you already got two number ones. Does he want to come in and be a number three receiver? If he's fine with that, then Philadelphia's a great fit. If he wants to go somewhere where he can try to win a championship as well as stats, there's no better place than Buffalo. You've got Stephon Diggs out here whining and crying, cussing at the organization, pissed off at Josh Allen because they won't get him a number two receiver. DeAndre Hopkins is sitting out here. You can bring him in for very little money because he's making a lot of money from the Cardinals this year. So it's like I don't see a better fit. Now, behind that, if we're talking the same type of thing, I would go Baltimore. Baltimore needs probably him to be 1A and at least at times be the top receiver. Some games you may be able to get that from Odell Beckham as well. But they have a lot that's needed to win, but I don't think he makes that much of a difference unless the new system that gets installed in Baltimore does something kind of like what Philadelphia is doing and uses the strengths of Lamar Jackson, which is his legs, and put him in his position where he's reading and reacting versus putting him in a position where you're asking him to drop back or you're asking him to be another running back. So changing the system may help if he were to go to Baltimore, but based on what we've seen so far, which is all we can go on, I think Buffalo first, then Baltimore. If he's cool with saying, you know what, I can just go in somewhere where I can kind of get in where I fit in. I get my yards. I'm going to be only seeing the number three receiver, so I should be dogging him. Philly's a great fit as well. So there's a couple different places he could go. Now, we did get a comment from one of our resident Lions fans. It says, I hope D-Hop considers Detroit. I believe that would make them a contender in the NFC.
Can I say something to your point? Cool.
Have at it.
If he came to Baltimore, I would see him exactly how we had Anquan Boldin. Anquan never had a 1,000-yard season here, but he made every tough catch possible. And if DeAndre's known for the tough catches, if he came here, I wouldn't really expect him to get like 1,600 yards, over 1,000 yards. I would expect him to get that fourth down catch when we need that fourth down conversion to extend the drive to help us win the game. And if he can do that, I would say, you know, he's a success, and he would be still a de facto number one, even though he didn't have the statistics.
Right, but that's the thing. If you're going to go somewhere where you're only going to make the big catches and you're not going to get the standard production, Philadelphia's a bigger fit. It's a better fit. If you talk about get 800 yards, he can get that in Philadelphia, build a team that has a much easier path to get to the Super Bowl back to the NFC. The only other real challenge in the NFC, unless something wild happens between now and the regular season, is the San Francisco 49ers. So if you're on the 49ers or the Eagles, you have a very strong possibility of getting back at least to the NFC Championship game and possibly the Super Bowl. Out west of the AFC, it's way more stacked. And like I said, if you're going to have, if that's all you're wanting to get for numbers, there's places you can go and get that. You can go to Kansas City and get that and be in a better situation. So, I mean, like Steve said, it depends on what he wants, but I'm just giving it based on what I think for two things. Number one, if you want to be the guy, or at least one of the two top guys, Buffalo. Baltimore would be my second choice in that scenario. Um, and then if you're fine just saying, hey, I get in where I fit in, I make the team better, I'm good. I think Philly's the best place. But if we're talking about everything, I would say Buffalo because you're going to be the number two automatically if you walk in Buffalo's door. So, gentlemen, we've come near the end of the episode here. But as always, I'd like to open it up here at the end, just give everybody a chance for any last comments you might want to have. So, Coach Dante, we'll start with you and we'll just slide around any last comments, any shout outs you want to give before we end things for the evening.
Yeah, man, I want to give a big shout out, to my Dallas Wings head coach, LT, for the first victory of a head coaching career in the WNBA. We do play the Seattle Storm tonight, so want to give a big shout out, for the win against, the Atlanta Dream. That's a great basketball team, and also shout out to the Atlanta Dream, man. They came from behind 20 points against the Minnesota Lynx. Like I said, in my top 20 WNBA players this year, I did a full video up on that. I had Ryan Howard in my top 10. Think she's going to be an all-star this year. She's going to be a superstar in this league. And I just want to give a shout out to my head coach, LT, and also, the Atlanta Dream from coming back 17 against a very scrappy Minnesota League team. And also shout out to the Connecticut Sun too. They're off to a fantastic start. Brianna Jones, Alyssa Thomas, really like her as a ball player. Give credit to them. They are pretty solid. They pretty good.
JJ?
So I'm gonna say this: Connecticut won because Washington just had bad starts. Because if I watched both of those games, shout out to them. I'm a big Terp fan, so the Terps and the Mystics. Terps have a lot of basketball players in the WNBA. Brianna Jones, you missed Alyssa Thomas, Tina Hawkins. All of these guys come from Maryland on the squad. But I will say in that game, Natasha Cloud had a bad game. She's not hitting her shots the way she normally do. And these games have come down to the very end, but they have gone to a good start. I just have to throw that in there because they're my Mystics and they beat us twice in a row when we should have had both of those games. But I just want to say, what an amazing playoffs. I've really enjoyed every playoff series in the NBA. I am curious and I'm looking forward to the offseason because I want to see what happens with my guy Kyle Kuzma. I want to see who gets him if he's coming from Washington. Who does he go to? Because he may have his craziness, he may have his fashion, but he fits in a lot of places and places that need things bad. And he's a good guy that can bring a difference maker to a team. But other than that, DeAndre coming to Baltimore, Lamar and them going to do what they got to do. And I'm excited for the rest of the season. I appreciate being on with y'all.
Steven, what you got?
So first of all, I want to recognize and shout out the WNBA. They've really the last couple of years been on the rise, hitting some big ratings, doing some big things. So shout out to all of the success that they're really starting to see. Um, One thing we didn't get to talk about, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but Scottie Pippen still, for some reason, cannot keep Michael Jordan's name out of his mouth. Um, Said that Michael Jordan was horrible before he got there. Scotty, man, listen, just let it go because you continuing to just want to make these comments is worse than your decision to sign a 7-year contract. Just let it go, bro. Time to move on with your life. And I don't know about the rest of y'all, man, but I'm glad football season started back a couple of days ago.
I mean, Steven, Larsa, his ex-wife was dating his son, Michael Jordan's son. I wouldn't be surprised if she had some time in relations with Michael Jordan himself.
It's time to let it go, bro. It's time to let it go, man.
And he hurt.
Him and Isaiah need to go start their own support group.
Only 2 members, and LeBron will join with them. Want to shout out, of course, the team behind me, the Denver Nuggets, the team on my hat, getting to our first ever NBA Finals. Long overdue, tough road. I think the Lakers in the bubble was the turning point. We lost that series, but we did hang in there. And I think it taught us, all right, if we can stay healthy, if we can stay together, then we'll be back. You know, the last 2 years, Nuggets have been dogged. They're whole this year. The depth is right. Coach is a little bit better. We learn from the mistakes, and we're getting it. Um, Still no opponent yet, but I'm ready for whoever it is. I hope, honestly, I would love for it to be Miami because again, that's home court for us. That's 4 games of Denver. All we got to do is do what we've been doing all playoffs, win at home, and we good. But if it's Boston, hey, take them out in 6. It don't even matter. That's just what it's going to have to be. Whoever it is, we just got to keep playing the way we playing, doing what we've been doing. Shout out to all the people in the Shack. Snowman Multimedia, Rod and Sister, Billy V, Will Voggs earlier. Everyone that's been in the chat, everybody that's watching, we appreciate you, man. You seeing this video later on? If you can, hop on live, interact with us. But even if you don't see that, there's some good content with the play callers. Keep watching. Much love to y'all. Make sure if you haven't already that you like, subscribe, and share us. And also, man, shout out to the WNBA as a whole. Shout out, of course, to my Atlanta Dream and my all-star Ryan Howard. And besides Ryan Howard, this is a very good team, right? It's got a lot of players that you're going to know, a lot of names that you've heard if you've been watching women's basketball, or even if you've been watching any sports, any of women's sports anytime soon. So I'm not going to take the time to go through it because we already at a point. But don't forget about a couple of different people. Alicia Gray, very big pickup for us.
Alicia, I told you, cool. She's a great,
very big pickup.
One of the best 3-and-D players in the WNBA. One of the best 3-and-D players in the WNBA.
And then
last night,
by the end of the year, Haley Jones and Letitia Amiri will be big parts of this team.
Oh,
Keep that in mind. They're both rookies.
Yep.
They will be huge parts of this team. By the Amiri,
I love
comes
Haley's
from.
game.
I wanted her. I actually wanted her.
Amiri comes from one of the most dominant organizations where she was there with colleges, USC, South Carolina. And then Haley Jones, really great player. Love having her there as well. Cheyenne Parker, so many people to name, but we know what it is.
You got nice
get better.
Yep.
Over the season, and you do what you got to do. You don't start off where you're going to end all the time. It's time for them to make the playoffs. Should have been last year, but the injuries hurt us. We're a little bit deeper now. A little bit better quality ladies behind. No disrespect to the ladies we had last year. So hopefully we're going to make some moves. But again, man, thank everybody hopped on with me here. Another episode in the books. We'll be back next week. Keep watching, keep supporting, keep subscribing, and we're going to get it. And with that being said, we up out of here.
All right, guys.